Hi, everyone, and welcome to Game of the Month Club for November. For November, Tom. It is December. What? It's the first week of December,
Yes.
so we're actually
That is what it is.
we're actually pretty much on schedule. Pretty much. Who's counting a few days? We're all friends here. We're all friends. But yes, Game of the Month Club, for those who don't know, is where we pick a game, we play that game in the month, and then at the end of the month, usually, well, sometimes, rarely, talk about them in a special episode. This month's game, November's game, is, of course, you've seen the title, you've seen the thumbnail. It is Uncharted 2 Among Thieves.
Yes.
Yes.
Because I
Whew.
wasn't sure about this originally. I was just like, it's Uncharted 2 something redacted. Yeah, Among Thieves.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes. I am your host, as always, Mr. Lava Lava, and with me is my co host.
Tomahawk here. Let us talk. Nathan Drake, Uncharted, Naughty Dog, PlayStation.
Yep,
Go.
I just want to apologize in advance. I have got a cold, so I may cough, I may sneeze, I may sniff a little bit, but bear with us. We'll get through this together, like Nathan Drake
Tis
through
the
the
season.
frozen tundra of Nepal. We will persevere, we will climb through this, and we will come out victorious because that is what Uncharted is all about. Before we get into Uncharted 2, Tomahawk, I feel like it's a weird place to start when we're reviewing games. Let's have a little chat about Uncharted Drake's Fortune, the first one.
Okay, let's do that. It's been a while, but I can cobble together the little tiny speckles in my memory bank.
It has been a while for me too, but when I say it's been a while, I think I played Uncharted 1 this time last year, I think. Uncharted's a weird
Okay.
series for me. It's one of those series where I want to play Uncharted, let's go. And I'll pick a random Uncharted game from the Nathan Drake collection on PlayStation 4 and I'll play through it. Uncharted 1. Let's play a game. Let's play a word association game, okay? I'm going to say a word, and you tell me the first word that comes to your head when I say this word, okay?
Right, let's do it. I'm excited for this now.
Uncharted.
4.
For God's sake, you're terrible at this game. What I was hoping for you to say was non-stop action, because Uncharted 1 is not at all non-stop action. It is
No.
actually, I don't want to use the word dull because that's the wrong word to use. There is massive parts of that game where you are puzzle solving and climbing up things, and there's not much going on in it.
Yeah, it's a puzzle platformer guising as a action adventure,
Yeah,
in my opinion.
that's a really good way to describe it. I couldn't believe it when I went back and played it last year. I was like, I remember this being way more action packed. The only real set pieces in Uncharted that I can recall is the dreadful, dreadful, dreadful um, jet skis, the jet ski bits where you're,
Yes.
yes.
Oh my god, yes.
And of course, all the
This was like
little.
early PS3, wasn't it? If
It
we're
was a
just gonna
launch
kind of
title. If memory serves me right, it was a launch
yeah.
title. So Naughty Dog were coming to grips with the PlayStation. According to Neil Druckmann, in a couple of interviews that I have read in preparation for this episode, they had massive problems with going from the PlayStation 2 to the PlayStation 3, specifically with the way that the cell processor talked to the graphics chip in the PlayStation. It gave them an awful lot of
Okay.
nightmares. So Uncharted 1 was a representation of what they wanted to make, but not exactly what they wanted to make. Druckmann said he wanted to create like a pulp action movie from the 50s 60s where detective movies were all the hip, and in the style of it, Indiana Jones is, I think, effectively Steven Spielberg and George Lucas with Indiana Jones wanted to create a pulp action movie, and that's what they wanted Uncharted to be. But for one reason or another, they lacked the time, the technical expertise, maybe a bit of both, and they couldn't really make Uncharted 1 what they wanted it to be. So they had to make massive, massive, massive concessions with Uncharted. I couldn't believe it when I
Okay.
was reading that. I think I read that last week, the week before, maybe. I was like, that's really interesting because I have played every single Uncharted game released, including the awful card game and the one on PlayStation Vita, Golden Abyss, which
What?
was absolutely superb. Yeah, there was a trading card
No,
game.
a trading card or like a top trump type thing, or
No. It was an actual
not to
video
linger
game.
on it, but
It was an
wow.
actual video game. I want to say it was on PlayStation Portable. It was. I think it was also packed in with Uncharted 3 originally. There was like a little trading card,
Okay.
like a Gwent type thing, if that makes sense.
Oh, okay. Yeah, just like one of those mini games that
Like a
another
side
like a
game, yeah.
AAA kind of
Yeah,
forces on you. Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
but it was also packed alone, and you could play it. It was either Vita or PSP. Don't quote me on that, but I do remember playing like this trading card game. It was okay. It wasn't as addictive as they wanted it to be, and there was buy card packs for 69p, whatever it might have been. But yes,
Yeah, yeah,
Golden Abyss has far more action than Uncharted One. So once they wrapped up Uncharted One, Neil Druckmann pulled his team together and said, "What have we learnt?" And then the seeds of Uncharted 2 sprouted from there. And they're like, well, we've learned how to do this, that, and the other. So mocap, all that sort of good stuff. And they learned how to sort of harness the cell processor a little bit more efficiently than what they
yeah.
were doing with Uncharted. And then they got together and was like, what are we aiming for here? So here is a couple of development factoids for you, Tomahawk. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's play a game. It's called The Price is Right. I'm going to ask you a question and you're going to give me a number, the closest without going over, Tom, and you will win a prize, okay? How many,
Can't
how much of the PlayStation 3 raw power did Uncharted take advantage of? Uncharted 1.
In terms of a percentage, or
Percentages, yeah.
I'm gonna go with. It sounds like it's gonna have done heavy numbers on it, so I'm gonna go with like 80%.
Incredible scenes. You are going away empty handed from this round of The Price is Right. It actually, Naughty Dog's and Sony's estimate was Uncharted Drake's Fortune took advantage of 30% of the PlayStation 3's
Oh,
total
much less.
horsepower. Okay. Now, there are reasons for this. Naughty Dog could not get the cell process, the way the cell processor and the graphics chip in the PlayStation sort of worked was kind of like the Sega Saturn, where one part of the console will do one thing and the other part of the console will do a completely different job. And there was like little interfaces in between the two, which would communicate the two between them, if that makes sense. So it caused Naughty Dog all sorts of havoc. So they were aiming for 80 to 90% of the PlayStation 3 with Uncharted. They couldn't hit it, couldn't get anywhere near it. So concessed. What percentage of the PlayStation 3 did Uncharted 2 take advantage of?
I'm gonna have to temper this guess a little bit, but I'm probably gonna go with about 50%.
Okay.
Surely they have to. Yeah, surely they're gonna have to have take more, but still had to concess. Surely.
It does use more. It does use more. According to Sony and Naughty Dog, they shot for 100%, but fell short
Okay.
and says it's probably about 80 to 85%.
Oh,
So
okay. Right.
that shows in between the two games, which was 2 or 3 years, that they had more than doubled their efficiency with the console, and they had doubled the efficiency of their engine as well. Now, here comes another fun game. How many polygons were there in any character in Uncharted 1?
God.
It's a fun game, Tom. I'm loving it.
It is a fun game, but you're giving me a headache at this time of the year and this time of the evening as well. Because now the only like polygon talk that I can even muster from memory is Cloud Strife from the OG Final Fantasy VII and Cloud Strife in the Final Fantasy VII Rebirth,
Mhm.
which was in the teens of millions. And I don't think Uncharted even remotely comes close to that.
It does not. It does not. If it gives you any sort of frame
I'm
of
gonna.
reference, the PlayStation 2 as a console could push about 5 million polygons in total.
Okay, so I'm gonna say we're gonna look at about for Uncharted 2.
Uncharted 1.
Uncharted 1. I'm going to say this probably was pushing around the top end of the PS2 then, so that's sort of
Like, keep
5
in mind,
million.
Uncharted only used 30% of the PlayStation 3's power.
Oh, okay, then we're or maybe about a million then.
Okay, 80,000. 80,000 per character
Jesus.
in Uncharted 1. Okay. Uncharted,
Okay.
Uncharted 2, 1.2 million polygons per character per frame of
Right.
animation.
Okay.
It is a massive, massive jump. Though
Huge jump up.
the way they got there was really, really simple. They optimized, couldn't get it running at all stably, and called Guerrilla Games for help. And Guerrilla visited their studios, talked them through how the PlayStation 3 worked because they would have released Killzone, and said, listen, you have to
Hmm.
do this, 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 and this. And this is how you optimize for the PlayStation 3. So that is how they got from 30% to 80%. And then with The Last of Us, obviously, they reckon it's about 95 to 97% what the PlayStation 3 could have done.
Okay.
In some scenes, they say it's 100% utilizing everything that the PlayStation 3 had to offer, which would explain why some of The Last of Us runs at like 20 frames per second. But yeah, that is just some development talk about Uncharted 2. Basically, they had to compromise massively with Uncharted 1 because of technical issues, technical
Like
ability,
limitations. Yeah.
and with Uncharted 2, Sony gave them their full backing, which I've no doubt Sony gave them the full backing for Uncharted 1, but just because it was a launch title, time crunch is really, this needs to be released 2007 with the PlayStation 3. We need a flagship title, and it's Uncharted. Uncharted 2,
Oh,
they got afforded a bit more time. They got full access to other members of the PlayStation Studio family, as we call them now. And just with through teamwork and just sheer dedication of Naughty Dog, Neil Druckmann's drive as director, they just massively, massively increased the technical side of Uncharted. And I don't think this is hyperbole. If it is hyperbole, tell me, Tom. But Uncharted 2 is technically one of one of the greatest games I have ever played on a technical level. It was doing things the PlayStation 3 should not have been doing. It was
I
blew
would
my
agree
mind.
with that. Yeah, no, I'm in this funny situation when it comes to the PS3 because for the longest time I was Xbox 360 and then I kind of just flipped to PS4. I kind of only got the tail end of the PlayStation 3, so I bought fun story about the PlayStation 3 for me.
Hmm.
I bought one second hand, third hand because I bought The Last of Us
Yes.
without owning a PS3. I bought a physical
Incredible
copy of The Last
scenes.
of Us in anticipation of buying a PS3. And when I bought the PS3, it came with Uncharted 1 and Uncharted 2.
Okay.
That was just the bundle that I
Yeah.
had picked up then. So I was like, I may as well play these games first and just get a feel for the console and everything about it. And Uncharted 1 definitely felt a little bit aged
It's
already at this
clunky.
point.
It's clunky.
Uncharted 2 was one of them funny titles because I was very much aware of them, but never played it myself, right? I never played it extensively, at least anyway. Uncharted 2 just was cinematic. I think that's the only way I can maybe describe it, especially for it being 2009,
Yeah, yeah, I
I
believe so.
want to
Yeah.
say.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know we'll touch on the story a little bit in detail, but just for that train, the train is the big
Train. Yeah,
iconography, the big
yeah.
iconic moment
It's
in
a,
the game. That's how the game opens as well. And you're just thrown into this platformer, and then you're straight into here's what happened before. And yeah, the game had no right to be doing that in terms of a narrative engine. Well, it was just it played like a movie, or
yeah,
how an action
yeah.
adventure movie usually sets up as well.
That opening train scene where Nate wakes up in the train and has to climb out as it falls off a cliff was so
Yeah,
cinematic. Tom Cruise stole it for the most recent Mission Impossible movie.
that's right.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it is just so beautifully shot. You could see Neil Druckmann was really enjoying making a movie here, because the game opens up and Drake opening his eyes and he's on a seat, and then the camera pulls out, and then just keeps on going, and then
And
you
it's on
see
the edge of the
the
cliff.
train
Yeah.
literally hanging over the edge. The carriage he was in is literally dangling, and then it goes whoosh straight back in, and then first time I played it, I thought it was a cutscene, and I died.
Yeah, it's such a funny. I think I did the same thing as well. It is so it's like the game doesn't really give you any warning because there's no intro cutscene. I think this has a tiny bit of dialogue to kind of set up the Marco Polo storyline and
Hmm.
everything that they were doing there. But then that's it, kind of just fades into white, and then Drake wakes up, and we're just thrown straight into the game.
The straight into the deep
Um,
end. It is a great piece of like non-linear storytelling. I love the conceit of it that we know something bad's going to happen. We have no idea how this bad thing has happened, and then the game just goes, "This is how it happened." Rewind, and it's like 2 or 3
yeah,
weeks in the past, and
months. Yeah. It's only a couple of weeks or so. Yeah.
yeah, and yeah, you're doing a job with a couple of new characters, whose name escapes me, but I haven't written down. Hold on a minute.
Uh,
Chloe.
Chloe Fraser and Harry Flynn, the most
Yes,
British
yes,
man
Flynn. Yes,
ever.
and so they are trying to steal an artifact, which is going to bring us to another ancient lost city of massive technology, and even more important for us, massive, massive riches. um,
That's
the
it.
Shintamani Stone, if memory serves me, and its town is called Shambhala. And of
Yes,
course,
it's a lot of I know that the Uncharted games they pick. I think part one was El
El
Dorado, part
Dorado.
three is Lawrence of Arabia, and that and all that, and then the fourth one is the Pirate Island, which the name escapes me. But to do something that is like in Tibet and that Asian culture
Hmm.
isn't something that's primarily done as well. So it's pushing the boat in terms of a piece of history that probably not a lot of people know about.
Hmm.
And whereas like Indiana Jones very much keeps it to kind of like the Africa, Middle East sort of era as well. So yeah, whole new setting. It's something new to learn for everybody, really, and I
Yeah,
think it's quite cool.
a new setting, new characters. All the new characters are great in this game. Chloe, in
Yeah.
particular, is the standout new character. Of course, we are joined by the characters from Uncharted 1, Sully and Elena. We meet them later on in the game, and it has this nice little. Obviously, it wants to be Indiana Jones. Let's just be fair and honest. Uncharted wants to be. Sony wants it to be their Indiana Jones, and it very much is. Very much is. But of course, with the introduction of Chloe and the reintroduction of Elena, we have that very awkward scenes with the three of them where it is a bit of a, I don't want to say love triangle, but there's definitely romantic feelings for both characters towards Nate.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Nate likes both characters back, and it's like, what's going to happen? And it's all very.
Yeah, it's typical Nate though, because like his character from the offset is just happy-go-lucky. I'll just, you know, it shows he has a relationship with Chloe previously, even before Elena, and he does sort of flip between the two
Mhm.
as the situation sort of calls for it, really. So, the man has riz. The man knows how to
Oh,
pull. Is all I'll say,
absolutely.
really.
He's the most charming hero Sony have in their stable of characters. He is very, very, very full of riz, as the kids say. um, but yeah, but that mission to start the game with Flynn and Chloe is we are stealing these items for a man we haven't met yet, but a man who wants it, and I think he's called Lazarevich, the main antagonist of the game, who is
Yes.
quite phenomenal as a antagonist. He is pantomime villain levels of evil. He is evil for the sake of being evil. The acts and deeds you see this man perform throughout this game is quite daggering. There is a great scene where Lazarevich, I think he grabs Elena, puts a gun to her head. So Nate does what Nate does, grabs one of his guards, and puts a gun to his head and says, "Let her go, or I'm killing them." And Lazarevich goes, "I don't care," and kills the
Shoots the guard.
man. Just
That's right.
shoots the guy in the head and Nate's arms. He
That's
has.
it, though. I mean, like he is the typical. He's a typical villain because the game sets up really well that you think Flynn's going to be the sort of big bad, and it's going to be a race to get it for him, and then you find out that Flynn's just kind of a cog for Lazarevich.
Hmm.
Which, according to the Uncharted fandom page, Serbian intelligence officer,
Yeah.
paramilitary commander, and ruthless war criminal, long thought to be dead by NATO. So he's very much been operating in the shadows under the radar. He's paying off Flynn and getting all this stuff just so he can find the Chintamani stone.
Yeah.
Chintamani? Chintamani.
Yeah, Centimani, I
Anyway.
think. The Centimani stone, I think it's called. But yeah, no,
But it's so formulaic, yeah. Like
it
in terms of
the
the
setup.
narrative as well. I mean, it's the same for really for all of them. They have this very good blueprint, and they take you on this lovely journey. And it feels the same, but it's so different every time. But they follow the same beats, which
It's exactly the same
when that
formula.
formula when the formula works, though, Naughty Dog are gonna absolutely take it to the bank.
No, absolutely, absolutely. No, it is. I think it's a great setup. I think the story is really, really good. At the end of the first mission where you're stealing the stone for Lazarevich with Flynn, Flynn betrays you. You end up getting arrested by the police. You end up going to prison, and you get released. I can't remember how long he's in prison for. It's quite some time. But Sully finds out where he is, comes and bails him out. And in the gap between that first mission and Sully bailing you, Chloe now works with Lazarevich and Flynn. And the dynamic
Yeah,
throughout the whole game is Chloe is working with you, but also she's working both sides. She's your inside guy who tells you what they're up to, what they know, and it helps you get sort of ahead of the villain throughout the game. It is, I think, the story's really good. It is pulpy, but that's exactly what they were shooting for, according to Neil Druckmann. They wanted an Indiana Jones style globe-trotting adventure with lots of twists, lots of turns, lots of big, big, big action scenes, and if there was a checklist of what they wanted to achieve and what they actually achieved, they achieved all that and more. The game is just stunning. The game is stunning. The characters are all really charming. They're really funny. They act consistently throughout the story. Flynn is a slimy weasel, where Chloe is way more capable as a sort of sidekick than Elena ever has been, ever will be.
oh yeah, yeah. She's like such a good mirror. She's a mirror image of Drake because she is, and it shows even in her Lost Legacy, her
Yep,
standalone.
yep.
She's just a mouth. She is just a way to talk. She gets herself in all these situations, but always finds a way to talk herself out of them.
Straight
She
back
is
right.
basically a female. She's the female Nathan Drake, and I think that's
Yeah.
I think you could nearly say that's what they are, what they want Lara Croft to be,
Um,
with a bit more
yeah,
sass.
yeah. She's a lot more sassy than Lara Croft. Lara Croft is much more respectful as a person than
uh,
what Chloe is. And then Elena, obviously in the first game, she was a reporter thrown into the deep end, completely incapable. It was a lot of Uncharted One felt like an escort mission with her, where you had to keep her safe. In this one, because she had that
oh yeah.
experience of Uncharted One, she is a bit more capable. Still, no Chloe Fraser, that's for sure. But it's just really cool, and it's really interesting to see all these characters, how they interact with one another, how they bounce off one another, how they sort of push each other to get through all the tight little spots they find themselves in. And some of the spots they find themselves in are extremely, extremely, extremely tight. Let's talk about how um, Uncharted 2 improves upon Uncharted 1, because, in my opinion, I don't know if you hold the same opinion as me, there is not one aspect of Uncharted 1 where Uncharted 2 doesn't improve on 10
No,
times over.
absolutely.
I mean, every single
Uncharted.
thing Uncharted 1 tried to do, Uncharted 2 does it 10 times better. Now, some of these changes, I think, would be controversial. There's a lot of talk right now of games oversimplifying for the sake of accessibility, and Uncharted 2 simplifies a lot of what Uncharted 1 tried to do. So the big thing in my head that sticks out about Uncharted 2, especially the last time I played it, was in Uncharted 1. I played Uncharted 2 and then played Uncharted 1, if that makes sense. And when I went back to
Okay.
Uncharted 1, the hand-to-hand combat on Uncharted 1 is a completely different system. So there's two buttons.
If I remember Uncharted One, it was basically punch and like essentially QTE would trigger, but everything would basically freeze frame and wait for you to press the button.
That was that
If
was
memory serves, yeah.
killing blows, yeah. So killing blows would do that. There was a lot of little things that sort of speak of the time in which Uncharted was released in. It was the the birth of the Wii, so there is a lot of motion controls in there, and there's yeah, the combat in Uncharted One. There's no reversals for a start. So there is no reversal.
Okay.
The enemies won't reverse you. You can't reverse them. Either, if memory serves me right, square and triangle are both punch buttons, but you have to use them. Different combinations for different combinations of fighting. It was really, really deep for what it was. I'm not saying it was like Street Fighter 2. Don't get me wrong, but
Yeah.
but it was deep for what it was. Uncharted 2 strips that all away. Triangle is now your reversal or dodge button. Squares
Your
your
counter button. Yeah,
squares your
yeah.
punch button. So it gets rid of that. What it added though to make up for that change was contextual events with hand to hand combat. So you could stealth now. I know you could stealth in Uncharted 1, but it was dreadful. I'm reticent to even call it stealth mechanics. In this
No,
one, you can actually,
there's it's non-existent. Yeah.
yeah, you can sneak around, you can grab enemies, you can hold them hostage, you can slam their heads off counters, you can pull them over ledges, the whole heap. They just added a lot to the hand-to-hand combat, added actual new mechanics that were fully fleshed out, fully thought out, and,
Uh-huh.
and worked extremely well. They also had contextual animation. So if you jumped over a piece of cover that was waist height and then hit the punch button, Nathan Drake would kick them in the face. If you remember that.
Yeah, it was really cool. I was going back through and just I wasn't playing it so much for the story. It was playing just to kind of get a feel for the mechanics
Mm,
because the sort of PlayStation 3, we've come a long way from Uncharted 2 to Thieves End, basically, and
hmm
how that's evolved as well. But yeah, just those wee nuances as well. Like he'll attack in certain ways depending on the actual like
hmm
stance of the enemy or where they are over barriers and stuff as well. Yeah, it's just lovely. Even like when he's climbing the handholds, they've took a lot of time and care into even how he moves, and he moves like an actual human being. It's not like preset. Oh, he just skips his way up. No, he actually is looking and moving appropriately
hmm
as well. So
hmm
everything's felt super smooth in that
Yeah.
regard.
Yeah, there is a lot of like new animations in there. I think that comes with the increase in polygons. They could do a lot more.
Oh,
The facial animations are incredibly good in Uncharted 2. Don't get me wrong, they're not modern standard, but they are for the time they were released. They were like
oh yeah.
miles ahead of the game. They were so good. But yeah, it's funny you say that he moves like a real human being. One of my big complaints about Uncharted 1 isn't how it feels, but I get that they wanted Nathan Drake to feel like a real human being. So in Uncharted 1, they give him like a weight. He's heavy, he's slow,
Uh-huh.
he's I get what they were trying to do. I don't think they were particularly successful with it. With Uncharted 2, they sort of tweaked it a little bit. He's still heavy. He still feels like a human being. He can move like a human being, but they have exaggerated everything a little bit more. He can jump further. He can obviously hang on a wall for an indefinite period of time, all that sort of good stuff. So they've took
Yeah, yeah.
the idea from Uncharted 1 and just made it more, for lack of a better term, action hero-y. He's an action hero now, and he can do these things that no ordinary human can. But it feels
Aye.
so consistent within the game world. It doesn't stick out of place. He doesn't feel like Cole from um the superhero game Infamous. He feels like a
Oh,
normal human being who's doing these super impressive things all the time. He's also indestructible, which will come to. He is indestructible. Nathan Drake cannot die. But speaking of like the hanging and stuff like that, the platforming is way more improved in Uncharted 2. The thing that got me about Uncharted 1 is the game very clearly followed a structure. Um, this is an action set piece area, and you'll know it instantly because when you run into an area, there'll be waist high walls everywhere. There'll be guns lying there. There'll be three little alleyways in which the enemies can run in at you from. You can see where combat is going to take place. And as soon as you hit that trigger point, bang, you're locked in that area. And it's all very flat. I found that the shooting mechanics of Uncharted 1 work fine. Uncharted 1, you can only hold two guns at any one time. So there was a lot of running
yes,
around,
that's right.
throwing down one gun, picking up another gun so you could continue fighting. It all felt fine. The ship mechanics in
Simple.
Uncharted are fine.
Yeah.
Um, the thing that got me though is that the combat arenas were badly designed. There was lots of cover there, but the enemies could come in above you, and they could,
Yeah, there was no real balance in terms of what you had at your disposal and what they were able to accomplish as well. So no, I get that the Uncharted was very much Uncharted One in particular was very much a go to this area, fight a load of bad guys, fake a stealth attempt, and then fight a load of bad guys. Whereas Uncharted Two, you can do stealth.
mm,
I'm not very good in these stealthy games, where especially where you have to sneak around and move around places to get to the door at the end, and then hold triangle to get the doors open. It's very much a Naughty Dog trope,
yeah.
and I'm not very good at it. I have to clear the arena no matter what happens.
Yes, yes, and it sort of just locks you in as well. You have to complete the combat, and then once the
Yeah.
combat encounter is done, you're going to move on to the next area, and it's either going to be platform or puzzle. And the entire game of Uncharted One just follows that. And there's no part in the game where you're fighting enemies and platforming, for example. There's no part of the game where you are fighting enemies and trying to solve a puzzle. It just doesn't happen. They're completely segregated.
Yeah,
The game
separate from each other. Yeah.
designated combat arena. This is a designated platforming area. This is a designated puzzle area. I think Uncharted 2 does follow the same pattern. There are designated combat areas, there are designated puzzle areas, but what it does is it merges them far more closely than one another. So Uncharted 2, the combat arenas are way better designed. They still stick out like sore thumb. Oh, there's a waist high wall after waist high wall. Can't fight here, but it gives you way more options on how you approach it. So you can throw grenades. So you could in the first game, but no one ever did because it used 6-axis controls. Um, but you could climb walls. You could use like signs on the walls as cover and shit down on your enemies. You could jump down on
Yeah.
top of them and then, finish them that way. It's just, it had the same structure, but everything felt way more organic. Everything felt like real places rather than video game arenas designed to kind of look like a real place.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah. It's just so much better design. It's so much better paced than Uncharted 1 as well. Uncharted 1 is a shorter game, feels longer because of overly long jet ski parts, overly long combat arenas. Like thing that sticks out in my head about Uncharted 1 is when you get to the Nazi U-boat in the jungle, you fight your way there, you get there,
Hmm.
it's another fight, and then you have to get into the U-boat, but when you're opening the little hatch, there's more enemies come out, and it's just combat. That part was really difficult, and it just went on far too long. There's not one part in Uncharted 2 where it outstays its welcome, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's it. No, because it does follow. It's following that like action hero movie beat nearly, so it can't afford to stay in places for too
Yeah,
long, only unless the player is a perfectionist and is looking to get every scrap of loot or every scrap of items there. Because even the characters will start to go,
come on.
"What are you doing?
Yeah, well, come on here.
Let's get moving." Yeah, like they'll start to give Nate grief to prompt you to move on. Really.
Let's go here. Yeah, we need to move. We need to go. Let's go. Have you got that collectible yet? Are you sure? You don't know you missed one? You missed one, Nate. And then that's really all the improvements. It's just everything's better. The platform is better. Uncharted 1, it felt like autopilot. Jump onto the first rung, hold up, and Nate will do everything for you. This one involves the player a lot more. You have to pick your
It's a lot more
paths.
parkoury elements, yeah.
Yeah, the balance beams no longer require you to hold your dual shot controller perfectly still because it uses 6 axes. You don't have to use your 6 axes to aim your grenades. It's the first game has a lot of problems, but it's Sony's fault because they forced them on because we have to use all these because it's a new console and we paid a lot of money for 6 axes.
Look at all these fancy features.
Look
Yeah,
at
yeah,
all of
yeah.
them. Look at all these fancy features that don't really work very well, but we're going to make you use them anyway, Naughty Dog. And I think that's really it. I think what we have to talk about here, is what people are wanting is
Crying out for it right
screaming
now
for it.
in my DM.
They want to know how we feel about all the set pieces in Uncharted 2. Now, I don't know if I have all of them. I've put the ones I can remember. As I said at the start of this episode, Uncharted 1 has a couple of set pieces. Uncharted 1, if you don't believe me, go back and play it. It is not as high octane as Uncharted 2, definitely not as high octane as Uncharted 3. It is slow, it is somber, it is a much more personal story than Uncharted 2 is, and it is more about the characters than what the characters are going to go through. This one, this one does all that whilst putting Nate through absolute hell. So here's the ones I can remember. Okay, so in Nepal, there is the bit in Nepal where you are running along the top of buildings and you're being chased by an attack chopper. And you have to run
Oh
along the top of the
yes.
buildings. You're fighting enemies whilst this helicopter is like Gatling gunning you and the building to absolute smithereens. And it's like it's what I was saying there is it takes combat and it takes platforming, puts them both together and goes run, do this, survive,
I just make it work. Yeah,
and
yeah.
it's utterly insane. The rooftop chase is brilliant because you have to run through parts of buildings, and as you're running through the building, the helicopter's just strafing, unleashing fury, and the building is just blowing up around you, and you're in full control of this all the time. It
Oh,
it
yeah.
just looks. It is even in 2024, it is mind blowing how they
But
got
it's
this running
one
in
of those
2009.
it's one of those ones as well where as the helicopter's shooting the building down and, like, Nate has to move and change pathways and, duck and weave and hop over covers and stuff, it's happening as the player's running, so it's not even one of those yes, it's procedurally generated, but it's not happening, like, half the map away and then you're then jumping over it. It's pretty much happening within like 2 or 3
Oh
frames.
yeah,
So
oh
it's
yeah,
every decision you're doing is
yeah.
snap decisions, but you're still following a linear enough path, but it's not super telegraphed. It's so immediate.
Yeah, I
And it
think
just has this mad sense of urgency, especially as you don't know where you're going, you don't know really know what you're doing, and it
yeah,
mirrors it in
yeah, I
the
think
gameplay.
in that part of the game, you're with Chloe and she's shouting at you where to go whilst she screams, "We have to go through here. We have to go through here," and you're just like, "Ah, there's a helicopter trying to kill me, and
Not listening anyway.
there's dudes popping out left and right that I'm trying to gun down as well. Here, calm yourself." But no, it's just I just I remember the first time I saw it because one of our mutual friends, Paul. Absolutely. I remember
Yes.
he loves this series. And I remember him bringing his PlayStation 3 round to my university house. You have to play Uncharted. You have to play Uncharted. It's amazing. It's the best game I've ever played. Look at it. It's incredible. I remember playing the Uncharted 1 over that weekend with Paul and going, yeah, it's looks really nice, but it's okay. Uncharted 2 is the game that you showed your friends when you had your PlayStation 3 and goes, look at
Oh,
this game. And then you would bring him
absolute
to the
standard. Yeah.
helicopter chase through Nepal because it is insanely good. So the next set piece after the chopper is you run into a building with one side of the building has no windows. So you hang there. And because half the building has no windows, the chase stops. It filters enemies into the room with you. You and Chloe are running around the inside of this building, taking out enemies, and the helicopter starts shooting the building, which then begins to collapse with you inside it. So you're running around this room. The building is literally collapsing around you as you retain full control of Nathan Drake. And it is just technically, this
Yeah,
is the
yeah.
game that put Naughty Dog on the map. You can say what you want about Crash Bandicoot. Crash Bandicoot was a technical marvel at its time. Crash Bandicoot 3 was incredible. Jack and Daxter was again another technological marvel. But this game, this game is the for me is this is the game that Naughty Dog became Naughty Dog. This is there's no one in the industry who can
Naughty Dog, the
touch this.
storyteller. Yeah, yeah.
There's
Absolutely.
no one can touch them on a storytelling sort of level, or a technical level. How they went from Uncharted's one's biggest set piece being a jet ski chase to a full scale building collapsing while you retain full control. And it's not, it isn't tricks, and it isn't, it's genuinely incredible. Like there's games
Yeah.
now who there's developers now who couldn't do this with a PlayStation 5 or a RTX 4090. It's
Yeah, yeah, no, that's it.
and here we have Naughty Dog doing it on a cell processor, on a 1 teraflop.
That's it. No, it's a laugh. Like the only sort of breaking gameplay for like like a loading screen or a cutscene or anything like that is when like they'll fall or go to a mudslide or something like that, or anything that requires a transition from set piece to the next movement.
Mhm.
And even then, it's so minute. Usually, it'll just be a cutscene from when they'll drop from a ledge
Yeah.
to fall to
Boom.
a mudslide, but then you're straight back into the control as well. So the game's so fluid that, to my recollection, there's very few moments where you're not controlling Drake,
There
and the story is just able to
there is a
progress
lot
pretty
of
seamlessly.
there's a lot of transitional shots where, oh, I fell from the top of that building, and I fell off cutscene, and then I hit the ground, and then you retain control of Nate, but there is that little cutscene in between. The fallen building has no cutscene
Yeah,
at all, apart from when it
no, that's it.
ends.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think the line is brilliant. It's the one line in this game that really sticks in my head was they get out of the building when it's near the ground. They just jump out the window, and Chloe's like, "We almost, that was crazy." He's like, "I know, we were in there," and the building just goes. It's just so good. That is just crazy. Now, I don't know how Naughty Dog did that. I think Neil Druckmann said in an interview that they created the room, so the room was static, and it was everything else moving around it, just using
Okay.
tricks and wizardry. And I don't know how you make a game, but that one scene should be shown to every university student who's doing game development, because that is um
It's
technological
a good case study.
feat.
Absolutely.
It's
Yeah.
just it's mind-blowingly good in 2024. It's as impressive today as what was it than what it was in 2009. If you think about 2009, right? 2009, Tomb Raider 1 was 13 years old. Tomb Raider 1 core design, if they had to change a room, so if you pulled a lever that made lava come out, for example, they couldn't show you that happening. You had to leave the room, pull a lever. That's why all those levers that made like water rises and lava flows, they couldn't show you that because they couldn't get it running. And we went from I can't show you water levels increasing to here's a full scale multi story building collapsing while you're inside it and shooting enemies while you're maintaining full control. Most games would put that in a cutscene. And Neil Druckmann believed in his team so
Yeah,
much to
yeah.
go,
Then
no, we're playing this. I'm sure they went,
no,
good
absolutely.
luck.
It
Hi.
shows like the faith that Sony gave them to just like run with it and go, yeah, we fully back that this is doable.
Yeah, this is
Yeah, it's done. I just you mentioned that I completely forgot about the helicopter chase. Just literally until you mentioned it, I was
yeah.
like, there's always like an Uncharted have this incredible thing where there's always an indestructible vehicle,
Yes,
and
there's
then they always have a chase centered around it. Because I always think of the truck leading on to the train in Uncharted
Uncharted
4.
4
Yeah, that's the one that always sticks in my head. But you don't get to that without having to
like this.
build on it, and yeah,
Yeah,
basically,
yeah.
it's always a great point. It's a great set piece, and they're full of them in this game as well.
It's-
Even the train. We'll talk about the train again as well.
Which one?
Like
Which train? Which train sequence?
uh,
The full one or
the
the starting
later,
one?
yeah, the full one where you're
Okay.
going carriage to carriage to carriage. Yeah, yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
That part again is incredible. So for those who have never played this game, there is a section that the game opens, obviously, we said, with Nathan Drake waking up on a train hanging over a cliff. We don't know how it's got there. And then about what 3/4 of the way through the game, we were in a train yard, and we board a train that starts moving, and we know that this is the train. and
We're
it's
finally caught up narratively, like the whole thing's come full circle, and we're like, right, this is it. This is what has got us to the start of the game, essentially.
let's see what happened and what led this train dangling over a cliff. And the action set piece here is frighteningly good. Like it is frighteningly good. It's ridiculous. So it is how good this part is. So, as you said, you start at the back of the train, and now we have to get to the front of the train via the external of the train. So we are climbing up the roofs. We are having fights with many a soldier. There's every different type of soldier in the
Endless
game.
hordes.
Endless,
That's it.
endless, endless. Where we're fighting through carriages, we're fighting above carriages, we're hanging off the side of carriages while traffic posts and stuff come through. You have to avoid. It's incredible. It is just incredible. I don't
Yeah.
know how Naughty Dog made this train that's flying through the countryside, and you're relentlessly fighting enemies. You get about three quarters of the way through, you start fighting guys with rat shields and stuff, which is actually a new mechanic I forgot about. You can kill them, take those rat shields, and use it as cover and make your way forward, which I just remembered
Yeah.
about there now. And when you get near the front of the train, um, attack choppers come in, and you have to start taking out helicopters with the big machine guns that they have planted at the on each side of the train. It's just wow. It's just everything that they have thrown at you up until this point in the game, they're now throwing it at the same time, and it's just
Oh yeah.
incredible.
It's always good, like in terms of the narrative, that the big bad has this like infinite army or
Yeah,
wealth of resource to be able to throw these endless enemies at you, because otherwise it just there's a moment where it just wouldn't make sense. But
yep,
because your man Lazarevich basically funds and has this private army at his disposal, everything seems organic and completely in the realm of
it's
possibility as well, because
completely
it happens
normal.
in 3 and 4 and 1 as well. So you don't question it. Whereas if like the big bad was just Harry Flynn, you'd be like, where's he getting all these guys from?
Yes.
How are all these so expendable? And that's it. Like everything feels and has its place in that sequence.
Hmm.
And yeah, and then the train comes careening off the side of the mountain, basically.
And then you have to climb out, and that scene's incredible as well because the train is obviously vertical, and you have to use the seats to climb out. When you get
Yeah.
to the horizontal part of the train, there's enemies there you have to fight your way through, but it's all time crunched. So you have to fight your way through as the train moves backwards, and you have to stay in the middle of
Uh,
the of all the carriages, fight your way out. It's just an incredible, incredible game. Once that train fight ends, I think it goes into the village and the mountains of Nepal, and it's all very
yeah,
quiet.
yeah,
And
yeah.
you meet all these locals, and they show you all their culture, and it's very slow. It's very calm, and it allows you as a player to sort of calm down from the adrenaline of I've just
Yeah, take a
fought
step back and get a bit of a lore dump,
a
really, and
braver, yeah, and you get all
what?
this lore. They
Yeah,
know
yeah, yeah.
where Shambhala is. They recognize the stone, all that sort of good stuff. It pushes the storyline ahead quite a bit. And then there's another set piece you said about indestructible vehicles that chase Nathan Drake. This is when Lazarevich sends in his armored. I want to say tanks, but they're not tanks. They're like armored vehicles with machine guns on top. And
Oh yeah, it's like an anti-personnel type vehicle. Yeah,
yes,
it's very much a, oh, you do a little bit of stealth, a bit of cover based shooting, you shoot the machine gunner on top, and then you run away, and then it drives through the building, and then it starts to, as you progress the area, it starts to deteriorate in health because it has to drive through the
yes,
setting to get to you, and then by the end of it, you're just pumping ammo into it to do any kind of damage to it. Yeah, it's good. It's tense. It's high octane, as we like to
yes.
say
It's
here.
just it's not. I'm not going to say this game's non-stop action, but when the action kicks in, it is relentless. I think that train section lasts about 45 minutes, isn't it?
It's a good
From
long section of the
from
game. It is a good portion of the game in terms of the action, in terms of it. It's not quite a elongated loading screen. It's not like the ladder climb in Snake Eater, but it's very much, it feels like the game's trying to get ahead of
Yeah, I've
itself.
to this day, I have no idea how they achieved that train rampaging through. I've no idea at all. It's just because it doesn't recycle. The backgrounds move.
The setting doesn't, yeah,
You go from the
repeat.
jungle to like the snow in one train journey. I don't know, but it is just it is mind-blowingly good. Every set piece in this game is really, really, really impressive from a technical level.
Uh,
It's also really impressive from a gameplay level. The trains are a really good example of what I was saying earlier on about they've took combat, they took platforming, and it expects you to do both at the same time. It just expects you to learn everything and use all the game's mechanics. It is a really good sort of you can see the DNA of this is going to sound really random. You can see the DNA of The Last of Us in that train section, where it expects you to make the most of the resources, make the most of the environment, and fight your way through it.
oh yeah,
In a sort of
absolutely.
way.
Like it sets a good tone and precedent for what Naughty Dog want to do in future projects, because we played a good portion of their catalog. Like, let's not kid ourselves.
Hmm.
And you see that formula, and you see those tropes run through. Like, it is the
Yeah,
DNA of
yeah.
Druckmann and Naughty Dog, and it presents itself through the entire catalog. So no, 100% back. I
Yeah.
100% back that comment.
It's funny that you mention that. Actually, I think I've played every single Naughty Dog game since Crash Bandicoot. The first one, I think I'm pretty sure I've played all of them, including the not so good ones like Jack 3. Um,
Yeah, no, I think I'm not far off that. Maybe one or two titles that possibly haven't played, but I think Naughty Dog's one of them developers that you think, maybe I haven't, and you think, oh no,
Definitely
I've
have.
played them all.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely have. But yeah, and
But it's
then
funny, just as we're sort of thinking about the now, this is like the longest period in this game where it's like, oh, this has been pretty grounded. We've had quite um not low stakes as such, but the end game doesn't seem particularly supernatural as all
mhm,
these like action adventure globetrotting games tend to go, until we get to Shambhala itself, and then we
yes,
have the Yetis and
yeah,
the
yes. The
and everything else that happens inside Shambhala.
Yeah, it's a weird one. I think as a thank you for getting rid of the tanks, the locals bring you to the entrance into Shambhala, which is inside a glacier, which looks beautiful, by the way. And then you enter Shambhala, and as you say, this is where the supernatural stuff comes into it. Uncharted One also had the supernatural when it was basically zombie Nazis.
Yeah, yeah.
Basically, whereas this one's more, you get attacked by a couple of Yetis as soon as you enter Shambhala, and then there's like inhabitants there that are blue skinned and extremely fast, extremely
Yeah,
strong,
the
bullet
it's
spongy.
it's kind of like it's the tree sap
It's the
thing
tree
that they
of
say. It's
life.
usually,
Yes.
yeah, the tree of life. Yeah,
Yeah.
so the protectors of Shambhala are basically immortals. The tree of life there is giving them power, and Lazarevich. That's it. Lazarevich wants the tree of life basically to become immortal and have the biggest army known to man, and
And yes,
be a
and
big
also
bad dude.
the sap is also extremely explosive. If you remember that, it blows up.
Yes, which doesn't become a key figure in the final boss fight.
Absolutely not. So yeah, you go through Shambhala, you get to the Tree of Life. You've been beaten there by Lazarevich, who throughout the game has been one step ahead of you all the time. Even though Chloe has tried her best to play both sides to her advantage because she wants to be the first one there. And you get there, and the final boss begins. And this is a really beautiful segue in. We've spent the best part of an hour talking about how amazing Uncharted 2 is. Let's talk about the stuff that isn't so great in Uncharted. It does have its issues. It doesn't detract from it too much, but this is when I'm going to say something really controversial. I don't think it's
Ooh,
controversial, but
let's
some
hear it.
people might. I genuinely don't think Naughty Dog have ever made a good boss fight until The Last of Us. The final boss fight,
Yes.
I don't count the
It
chopper as
is.
a boss fight. It's not a boss fight.
No, it's a set piece.
Yes.
It's absolutely a set piece. But like, no, I get where you're coming from, because the Lazarevich final boss is basically what I remember of it. It feels like it's just a timed event until the tree sap becomes available as a mechanic, and then basically you use it to
Yeah.
explode him
Yeah, so
to
you
death.
you go into you go into if memory serves me right now, I could be misremembering this. I remember fist fighting Lazarevich because you were told not to shoot because of the tree sap that was everywhere. He uses it against you. He throws it at you and shoots it and stuff. But it's a fist fight, and my memory of this fight is running around in a circle, using ledges, getting him in a loop above me, jumping up, fist fighting him for a bit, jumping back down,
Yes,
waiting
and
for him to
then
get
dive
back
on
in a
top of
loop,
him,
jump
punch him.
back up.
Yeah.
It's a dreadful boss fight. The boss fight in Uncharted 1 is takes place on the pier during sunset. Looks stunning, but the boss fight is also dreadful.
They're
The
usually just bullet sponges as
the
well, aren't they, the
final boss
bosses,
fight,
until there's a set piece finale or something
yeah,
like that.
Lazarevich, the way you have to take him down in this game is such a massive, massive, massive letdown for me. The final boss fight in this game is awful. It is one of those boss fights that's so bad. It The last time I played it, I think I stopped at Shimbala because I it looks amazing, and after the boss fight, the escape sequence is brilliant, but the boss fight and the fight against all those supernatural things is awful. One thing I will say in the defense is at least Uncharted 2 tries to give you some sort of lore reason why there's these supernatural beings there. The tree sap, oh, they're feeding on the tree sap, and that's what gives them this elongated life. It gives them their superhuman strength, their
Yeah, yeah.
agility, their ability to be resistant to pain and bullets effectively. Whereas in the Uncharted 1, it was just like, oh, okay, no, there's zombie Nazis now.
Eldorado.
There's zombie Nazis, okay. And it's one of the big issues I have with all the Uncharted's, and it was when we got the Uncharted 4 and they faked the supernatural bit, because Uncharted 4 does not have
Yeah,
anything
that's right.
supernatural. You get
It's so grounded, like,
Yep,
it's pretty much as real life, and everything is so tethered to
yep.
reality. It's yeah, that's a
And in
great,
Uncharted
great
4,
point, actually.
when they fake the supernatural stuff, I feel like those thousands of emails I sent to Neil Druckmann saying, please, please, please stop doing the supernatural stuff because I don't like it. He heard me. Thank you, Neil. But yeah, the final boss fight's awful.
But
Awful.
yeah, like, there's a few bits, like, obviously, like, the game is 15 years old now. I think we literally did just pass the anniversary there
Hmm.
last month.
Hmm.
There are a lot of bits, particularly whenever I played it, in prep for this, and I'm not gonna lie, I got like 3 chapters in, and then there's a lot of that did frustrate me, and plus I was like, I've got more modern games I want to be playing right now. When you're in the museum to steal the oil lantern,
The stealth mission.
uh,
Yeah.
the stealth mission, and it's like, oh, Flynn just goes, right, go this way and I'll meet you this way, and he doesn't move. He's the most static NPC you meet. So the first thing you're told to do is just jump off the side. A guard is posted at the fountain, and no matter what I did, no matter which way I jumped off, the guard saw me.
Yeah.
Or if I tried to do the automatic cover, when you're in a stealth arena, Nate is automatically crouching,
Yes.
but sometimes he won't stick to the borders or the ledges or
Yeah.
the
Yeah. I know what
shoulder
you
high
mean.
cover, and no matter what you do or where you go, you then find yourself in this loop of just being caught and having to go through that annoying high pitched ring that they do when you die or you get caught or anything like that, and it's just an infinite cycle. So there's a few bits that aren't neat and tidy and squared off as you'd like, but
Hmm.
it's I can let it slide normally because it is at its forefront an action adventure game,
Yes. Stealth game. Yeah.
not a stealth based game.
Yeah, the frustrating thing about that is when the like cover mechanics work, and they do work 90% of the time. There is the odd time where as you say, he doesn't stick to the wall. They enhance that you can move around corners and you can change cover whilst in cover and stuff, which is something you couldn't do in Uncharted 1. It does work 90% of the time, but yeah, it does have little frustrations like that. The final boss is awful. One thing I will say about the final boss fight is the arena under the Tree of Life is absolutely beautiful. It's just all that
Mhm.
rich blue, and the light coming through the leaves and sort of breaking up and glows green in this really beautiful green and blue glow as you're destroying the most powerful independent army general in the planet um, with your fists. Um, but yeah, no, there's not enough a lot in this game to dislike. A bigger issue for me than Lazarevich's final fight, and it's a problem that's throughout the game, and it annoys me, and I don't recall there being an option to turn it off. Is when you enter a puzzle room, it will give you the puzzle, and if you look at your book, it will show you the puzzle, and it's pretty
Yeah.
straightforward just to figure out what you need to do in most of them. But the game will ping hints at you, and I say hints, but it tells you how to solve it within 30 seconds of a minute of you entering the room. It'll go ping, try this, ping,
Yeah,
try
if you're
this.
not like if you're looking in the wrong place, it's the game's too quick nearly
It's
to
far too quick.
guide you.
It doesn't
Yeah,
allow
yeah,
you
yeah.
to digest what you need to do. And oftentimes you're in the process of doing what it wants you to do, and it goes ping, you can move objects in this room, look around for handholds to climb.
But
And
I think that that's a Naughty Dog thing. I don't think that they ever have deviated from that. The hint system is always there, but I think like I'm playing The Last of Us Part Two at the minute, and there was genuinely a moment. I just started playing as the levels as Abby.
Mhm.
I was in a room for about 10 seconds, and rather than do the ping and the text at the bottom, Manny, one of the other characters, went, "Let's go this way," and I'm going, and then the camera just forces
Give
the
me a
the
minute.
pan, and I was like, "What are you doing? I wanted to have a little bit of an explore, and now you're forcing me out of this area."
Yeah.
So, Naughty Dog do it, and I think they're so set in their ways, they're never gonna
No.
ditch it. Really.
And I get it. I do know why they do it. It is so you don't get stuck, it's so they can keep the pace of the game up. I get
Oh
it.
yeah.
I just wish that one, they would let you turn it off. If they can, then apologies to Naughty Dog and everyone involved with Uncharted 2. I don't recall there being an option in the menu to turn them off. I just remember being really, really annoyed. Uncharted 3 also does it, but Uncharted 3 gives you a bit more time. But it gives you a bit more time before they start, but they are so frequent in Uncharted 3. It is frightening how frequent they
Mhm.
are. It's crazy. And apart from like the little cover mechanics sort of things, the final boss and the hint system, my god, the hint system. There's not much
It is a
else
laugh.
about
We're complaining about this. We're complaining about stuff that has been fixed purely due to the age of the game.
subsequently.
And I like it is a laugh that we're griping on these things, but like podcast didn't exist in 2009, so what were we gonna do?
Yeah, probably did. We don't know. We're not going to do the research to find that
Well,
out.
that's fact now. I've
Um,
said it, it's fact.
but apart from that, the last thing I want to talk about is the Uncharted 2 multiplayer because it's an element of the game people
I
forget existed. Yeah,
forgot about the
exactly.
multiplayer.
Exactly,
Yeah,
man. Yeah.
it's basically just like Nathan Drake's all running around shooting each other.
Well, pretty much. But you had a lot of character skins and you could like customize them and stuff. The multiplayer was really good. Really good. Like it was fun. It was vertical. It was just fast paced fun. It was no Gears of War and it was certainly no
Aye.
Halo, but it was really good fun. I remember playing the multiplayer for a little bit before I gave up because it was back in the day when PlayStation didn't package a microphone, so no one talked. So it was just dead silence other than the
Yeah.
game, and it was no real fostering of a community. I think the Uncharted community did really enjoy it because I remember when the Nathan Drake collection came out on PlayStation 4, they had stripped all the multiplayer components from all of them because Uncharted 3 had a really good multiplayer mode as well. Really, really
I
good
remember
multiplayer.
the Uncharted 3 multiplayer. It was very that one does stick in my mind really. It literally was just do a bit of parkour, do a bit of shooting. As you say, there was not much chat going on it, but yeah, it's such a funny one because obviously we also our sort of nexus point for the podcast was Monday Night Multiplayer, which a lot of the time was playing factions in The Last of
Yeah,
Us, which is again something that has evolved from just running around shooting to the whole system that factions did have, and that's all been stripped away again as well. But that's another thing for another time.
it is. It is.
Uh, yeah, oh, I
But
miss
yeah,
it every
so
day.
Uncharted 2, um, the the Empire Strikes Back of video game sequels. I personally think Uncharted 2 is the single biggest improvement sequel I've ever seen in video games.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
absolutely. And it's a good stop. It's a good benchmark to everything that they wanted to do and every vision that they had for the franchise
mhm.
to be able to execute it and just go beyond that as well. And it's absolutely stood the test of time. It's,
Yeah, absolutely.
synonymous with the PlayStation. It is like the modern thing that we associate. Nathan Drake is what we associate with the PlayStation. He's like
Yeah,
the first thing that is always sold as part of the package.
yeah. To me, it is. It's probably one of the greatest sequels in video games, if not the best sequel in video games. It's just it takes the sort of concept from the original concept for Uncharted, and just sort of brings it to reality in
Yeah.
such a way that I had never seen before. It's like, oh my, is this is a game and I can play it. Oh my goodness. And I just try to think what 2009, the Xbox 360, I think was Gears of War 2, a really good sequel to a really good game. But the jump in quality between those two games was nowhere near Uncharted 2 from Uncharted 1. It was just
Yeah.
magnificent. I can't think of anything else to talk about unless there's something I've forgotten, Tommy, you want to talk about, but
The music in this game is very like cinematic has been sort of the theme that I've ran with for talking about this game, and this is the one that has, to me, the most sort of movie soundtrack. Like it's so good that you don't notice it's there, but also when the set pieces kick in, it's so grand, it's so big. The music even like how it shifts and changes to the location. So when you're in Nepal, the music sounds like what I would associate Nepal with. When you're, you know, in America, when you're in, I want to say Borneo, I want to say somewhere like that as well. But like the music is specific to each location as well. And then you've got the big iconic Uncharted theme song as well.
yeah, I think it's called
Stellar.
Drake's theme. Is just yeah, it's iconic
Yeah,
at this stage of
yeah.
the game. It's just incredible. Yeah, yeah. It's
No, no, no. Everything about this game just screamed like cinematic movie
yeah.
experience, and like we touched on it at the start. I think this is lovely because it kind of comes full circle. Um, Everything felt like a movie, and everything just felt like an experience playing this game. And as we said, it's nothing quite like anything that was coming out at the time.
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. It was the game that prompted uh, Eidos and Square Enix to reconsider Tomb Raider. It was such a
Yeah.
genre redefining game that similar games went, we need to be more like Uncharted for good or bad. But the amount of Uncharted clones that came out of this game is quite staggering, including Lara Croft Tomb Raider. But yeah,
Do you want to know what other sequels came out in 2000? And just on a slight tangent, since we're talking about games, sequels of games that came out
yeah,
in
go ahead.
2009, we had Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, Assassin's Creed 2 is probably one I would argue
Oh
that
yeah, yeah,
would have been a good shout for an improvement. We had Left 4 Dead 2, we had Resident Evil 5, we also had Marvel's Ultimate Alliance 2 and Killzone 2. So we had a good couple of sequels in
yeah.
that year at least anyway. But as you say, in terms of the progression from first to second, Uncharted I think stands
Yeah,
head and
the
shoulders above
gulf
it.
between the first two is probably Uncharted. Assassin's Creed has an argument to make in that case. We'll let the listeners decide which one's the bigger improvement, Assassin's Creed 2 or Uncharted 2. I'm sticking with Uncharted 2. I think Uncharted 1's a good 7 out of 10, 7.5 out of 10. I think the first Assassin's Creed's roughly the same sort of quality, but just I think Uncharted 2's miles better than Assassin's Creed 2 on every conceivable level. But
We'll have to do a game of the month on Assassin's Creed 2 now and compare notes.
it's a great game. I do like Assassin's Creed. Let's make it
Yeah.
happen. So we've come to the end. Then we have drained the well dry. We have charted Drake's course throughout this game. The last thing we need to do here, Tomahawk, is give this game a score on the patented high scores, high stakes tier list. What are you giving this game?
I'm gonna give it an A tier.
A.
Uh, it,
Harsh.
it's it's. I'm too late to the party for it to be an S tier.
Okay.
I think had I had a PlayStation 3 prior to
Mhm.
release and had been like been able to anticipate this release, I probably would have been higher. But given that I've had to sort of backpedal, consider what I have been playing and whatnot, yeah, it's solid A tier, but it's a game that has stuck really, and it's a game that has been a great blueprint for everything else I've been playing over the last like 20 years after that,
Yeah.
15 years after that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm happy.
I am going to disagree with you here. I am going to give Uncharted 2 an S tier. I think
Nice.
it's
We don't
fantastic.
get very many S tiers.
I honestly think it's fantastic. I think it has its issues. Of course it does. Every game does. The issues are so minor that I can't ignore those insanely high highs for a couple of moderate dips in quality. I think it's brilliant. There's some parts of it I don't enjoy as much as others, but that's just every game in my opinion. I think it's an S tier. I think it's one of the best sequels ever made, if not the best sequel ever made. It redefined PlayStation. It brought PlayStation into the modern
Yeah.
era. It saved the PlayStation 3, in my opinion. This is the game that made people forget that they were paying £499 for a PlayStation 3. I think they coincided it.
Yes, actually, that's a very good point.
I think they coincided this release with the reissue of the fat PlayStation 3 as well, that dropped the PlayStation 2 backwards compatibility. And they
Mhm.
dropped the price by £100 and then packaged Uncharted 2 with it. I think it saved the PlayStation 3 brand. It did save that generation for Sony. So its influence on the industry, the influence on Sony, just the sheer quality of the game, it has to be an S tier. I'm going to give it an S tier. I'm going to disagree with you here, Tomahawk.
Cool. No, no, absolutely. That's what we're here for. That's why we have the two different opinions.
Yeah, indeed, indeed. If Cardinal was here, I don't know what do you give it. It has a map, so he might give
Probably
it a beat here.
a B tier seems like a very cardinal answer
It
for it.
does.
Now, it strikes me as a game that he goes, "Well, I remember it,
Yeah.
and that's it."
I'll let you two talk and I'll chirp in with a wee bit here and there. But yes, that is another game of the month all wrapped up. We have one more to do, Tomahawk. December's game, which is going to be out extremely, extremely, extremely soon. We have changed our plan. It was originally intended to be Crash Bandicoot. It is no longer Crash Bandicoot, but it is another PlayStation 1 classic. It is, of course, the big one. It's Dino Crisis. Let's go.
Yes, it's Dino Crisis. And I was streaming this exclusively for Game of the Month.
Yeah.
For anyone who didn't see me do this on Twitch, this was a game that I've been like, well, it's on the classics now. I'm gonna have to get this one played, and I can't wait to talk about it.
Yeah, no,
Maybe Capcom will listen. Maybe they'll be there. Maybe they'll. These boys need a remake, a remaster, the whole works. Let's do it.
let's get that remaster.
This is the one.
But until Dino Crisis, until then, I've been Mr. Level. This has been High Scores, High Stakes Game of the Month Club. I'll see you next month. Thanks for listening. Love you all. Bye.
Bye.